And now I would like to bring some comfort and clarity to that question. Where are we on the Lord's prophetic calendar? That answer comes as a simple but obvious observation. Listen. The Julian calendar that is used to chronicle, based on the Julian scheme of measuring a year, with 3 years that are 365 days long, and the fourth year that is 366 days long, has a problem. In other words, a 365.25 day in a year calculation that was never correct and is off by 0.0078 days a year. The Gregorian calendar was changed at the direction of Pope Gregory, and the Catholic nations of the world started using this much more accurate calendar in the year 1582 AD. The Gregorian calendar was used by most of the rest of the world when Great Britain took the lead and legally established the Gregorian calendar in the year 1752, along with most of the rest of the world. The last holdout in Europe was Greece, that finally established the Gregorian calendar in 1923. Did the Gregorian calendar correct any dates prior to October of 1582? Did they correct the Julian calendar that was established as the world calendar in 46 BC? The answer is no. So whenever you are measuring time on a calendar that includes any dates prior to 1582, and you need to accurately measure a true time duration, you will need to subtract 0.0078 from every single year that happens in history before 1752 AD, when the world, for the most part, changed the calendar calculation based on the Gregorian calendar. And by the way, the 1752 date is the date used by all the online date duration calendars, so keep that in mind. And do not forget that the Lord has his own yearly calendar from creation that's perfect. And for at least 1,556 years, and it could have been longer, but from creation to the flood of Noah, this calendar kept perfect time. Add the reintroduction of the Lord's 360 days in a year calendar that I believe, based on the scriptures alone, will replace the current Gregorian calendar that is currently keeping us so close to the actual 365, 242, 199 days in a year. We cannot ever forget that God is precise, with an exactitude that is both frightening at times and also very comforting to his children. Some things are hard to unfold, too complicated, requiring too much intuition and knowledge to explain. But what I'm about to show is both knowable and can be easily calculated. So my job in the next few minutes is to show you how we got it wrong and how, consulting the Lord's Word, we can get it right. I believe that Yeshua is coming at his appointed time that will complete 5,993 years of the 7,000-year calendar that began in 3969 BC. Will the Lord work it out so the Hebrew calendar seamlessly fits into the Lord's tropical calendar that he established after the flood of Noah? I think he will. And now I have the privilege of publishing where we are on the Lord's calendar after all the corrections are both understood and applied. The 77 years between Tishri 1 that began the 77-year countdown to the great and terrible day of the Lord took place on the Gregorian calendar on October 4th, 1948. And this is where it gets interesting, as we need to remind ourselves that we are living in a period of time that began after the flood of Noah, who was a Gentile. Since the flood of Noah, going forward over 4,000 years to the year 1752 AD, we've all been doing our calendar calculations on the Julian calendar. Pope Gregory created a more accurate calendar in 1582. It became the official calendar of the Roman Catholic Church. In 1752 AD, 170 years later, it was adopted by most of the rest of the world. How did Pope Gregory adjust the calendar? It was simple. He simply removed 11 days from the calendar that went from October 5th, Thursday, 1582, to Friday, 1582, October 15th. So if it was your birthday anytime between October 5th and the 15th, you were out of luck. No party, no presents, no cake. It all just disappeared. This was the solution to the overestimation of time based on the Julian calendar. How did Pope Gregory come up with 11 days? The Julian calendar was created in 46 BC. The number of years between 46 BC and 1582 AD is 1,624 years. And there's a difference between the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar and the most accurate astronomical solar calendar. Why is this important? The Julian calendar overreports 0.0078 days per year. In 1,000 years, it's overestimated the days in a year by almost 8 days, 7.8 days. The Gregorian calendar is much more accurate, as it overestimates the days in 1,000 years by less than 1 day. The astronomical topical calendar is as close as we will ever get to the Lord's tropical calendar. So what does this mean, and what does it have to do with 2025? In a nutshell, we have been using the more accurate Gregorian calendar since 1752 AD. Starting with the flood and going forward over 4,000 years adds 0.0078 of a day to each year that has never been corrected, as the Gregorian calendar only corrected the calendar going forward from 1582 AD. And unfortunately, the world used the Julian calendar until 1752 AD. There are over 4,100 years between the flood of Noah and 1752 AD, when Great Britain and most of the rest of the Western world began using the Gregorian calendar. The bottom line is this: in order to accurately and precisely calculate where we are in 2025 AD, we would need to remove 32 days from the Julian calendar, starting with the flood of Noah. But instead of redoing the Julian calendar starting with the flood of Noah, the easiest way to figure this out without creating confusion is to just add 32 days to our current calendar, with the understanding that in order to line up with the Lord's astronomical tropical solar calendar, we need to move backwards before we can move forward. So I will add 32 days to where we are right now, 77 years from the rebirth of Israel, that I believe will herald the great and terrible day of the Lord that lasts 7 years and ushers in the Lord's 1,000-year kingdom on this earth. This calendar change might not seem logical, but if you think about it for a moment, you will understand that instead of removing 32 days from the start of the flood date, adding 32 incompleted days to the calendar does the same thing, as it will reconcile the Lord's tropical calendar and the Hebrew calendar at the end of the 77-year period from Israel becoming a nation in 1948 AD. So here is a chart with a timeline of where we are right now, adding 32 days in order to get us in sync with the Lord's tropical calendar that He decreed to time His appointed times right up to the end, with the understanding that the Lord has not revealed the start date for all this, which could result in a few more weeks of patiently waiting. Or perhaps, as I believe, He has already revealed it in 1948, as He wants us to be encouraged and ready as we patiently wait for the event that He has planned for His bride, the church, that will happen in 2025 AD. Remember that Daniel 9:24 through 26 was only to be fully revealed at the end as the Lord commanded, and we are definitely at the end. Are you ready, as at exactly the right time the redeemed are going to vanish? 77 years from when Israel was reborn. So let's wrap this up with the following 2 verses from the Bible. On the 2nd month, the 10th day, exactly 30 days from Tishri 10, that was the Day of Atonement, this is what happened. Listen to it in Genesis 7:1. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Enter the ark, you and all your household, for you alone I have seen to be righteous before me at this time." 7 days later, the flood begins. And in Genesis 7:11 we read, "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on the same day all the fountains of the great deep burst open, and the floodgates of the sky were opened." And in Matthew 24:37-38 we read, "For the coming of the Son of Man will be like the days of Noah. For as in those days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark." And finally, in Hebrews 11:7, "By faith Noah, being warned by God about things not yet seen, in reverence prepared an ark for the salvation of his household, by which he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is according to faith." So here's my question to you. Are you an heir of the righteousness which is according to faith? Faith in the atoning work of Messiah accomplished on the cross of Calvary? Maranatha. One final note. I did not have time in the video you just watched to reveal the miraculous connection between the flood of Noah and the beginning of the great and terrible day of the Lord. It is truly a Jubilee miracle. There is very little time left, but as a legacy to those left behind, with a special note to those that are children of Israel by birth, that will by God's mercy, through this time of tribulation, become sons by faith in the true Messiah, I have prepared a special video that I hope to have finished before the redeemed vanish from the earth. Brothers and sisters, pray for wisdom and understanding as the Lord Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh wants you to know Him, and with that relationship restored by His grace and your simple faith in our Messiah, He will grant you eternal life.